Am I saying they don't exist? No. No. Am I saying God is not capable of them? No, absolutely not. What I'm saying is I've just never had them happen. So it's difficult for me, and it's difficult for many people outside our walls to believe that these sorts of things happen. And so then, because the miracles, and there are 3 or 4 of them in this story, because the miracles are hard to grasp, we sometimes throw out the whole story. Well, if I can't grasp the miracles, it's all just, it's too much. And then we heap on the feeding of the 5,000, and we heap on, Jesus walking on water, and all these things, and it becomes very, very difficult. We get so lost in the miracles for some people. It's one of the problems why we lose people after confirmation in the Christian church oftentimes. Why? Because they began to think more deeply about some of the things we taught them when they were this age. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it indicates that the mind begins to be more critical. And so the challenge is to look at what's really going on in the story. Well, we know that Jesus' sonship is being conveyed. Yes, the miracles are important, but fundamentally it's not about the miracles. It's about the fact that this is the Son of God. But it's hard to take in. All of the miracles in this story are essentially, they have one purpose: to communicate to us. All of Scripture, friends, all of Scripture is about one thing, really. It's about God continually trying to draw closer to us. All of Scripture, God continually trying to draw closer to the Israelites. God sending Jesus to reconcile the world to God. God is continually trying to draw closer to us. God is continually trying to communicate to us. And the truth is, back then, miracles would have been very effective in communicating to people. Stories of miracles. Today, they're not quite so effective. People are far more inclined to disbelieve our story because of the miracles. Does that mean we throw out the miracles? No! It means we find the nub of the story. The goal, people, is to draw into closer and deeper and richer and fuller and more abundant relationship with God. That's the goal. Through Jesus. Directly with God. However God is drawing you in, it is to engage in that communication. And so it raises the question, how does God communicate with you? How does God communicate with you? I asked this of a very good buddy of mine, a gentleman, he's just a great guy. And he had said that he had a sort of a life-changing experience once. He had experienced the white light. It was a traumatic event in their family, and he had experienced the white light, and the white light brought a voice. He had had a miraculous experience. I went on to press him, what other times has God communicated with you, where you knew it was God communicating with you? He said, well, I remember on my grandma's knee, knowing it was God's love that I was feeling, being communicated through my grandmother. That God has spoken in my heart, and sometimes I just know, my friend said. I asked this question in my Bible study as well on Wednesdays. It's a Wednesday noon Bible study, and you're welcome to join us. One of the gentlemen said, Sven, it was an odd sequence of events. It was such an odd sequence of events when my wife and I were considering having a child. It was so startling that we knew. We knew this was God speaking to us, communicating to us. A woman in the group said, I just know it. It doesn't happen a lot, but there are times when I just know that God is speaking to me. Still another person said, Sven, times of very, very unusual coincidence. Another person says, it's when I have that gut feeling that I know Jesus is speaking to me from within. So you see, we all experience it a little bit differently, yet it is precisely that experience of communion with God. It is precisely for that experience that we come to church. It is precisely that thirst. It is precisely that hunger of that stepping toward God or God stepping toward us. It is precisely that communion with God that we seek. Sometimes that communion happens or God speaks to us when we don't even expect it or when we're not even trying. It happens to us. There are times as well when we are stepping toward God and God responds twofold, tenfold, 100-fold. But ultimately, people, The goal of life is communion with the Creator of the universe. Communion with His Spirit, communion with His Son. Because that's the stuff that transforms lives. Lives of inspired action. Lives of God dwelling within. And the truth is, as confessing Lutherans, what do we do in the communion? We ingest Jesus. Jesus is now in us. Is it so far-fetched to think that Jesus also speaks from within? Go through Scripture. Paul, David, way back even into the book of Deuteronomy. We have the prophets, we have the apostles speaking of, telling of God, or the Spirit of Jesus, the Paraclete, or Jesus speaking inside, and the knowing, and the sensing. But the problem is this, is twofold, and we discussed this morning in the Bible study. The problem is, one, we don't trust that God is actually going to do that. We so long for it. We pine for it. Lord, speak to me. What is your will for my life? What do you want me to do? Speak to me, Lord. What should I be doing in this situation? Please, Lord, touch my life. We pine for it. And when it doesn't come, we engage in all manner of furious activity, like a squirrel before winter scurrying for food. We can't trust. We so often fail to trust that God will come. God will speak. Be still. Know that I'm God. So it's trusting. Our inability to trust that God will speak when God is ready to speak. And the other is the inability to trust that God's designs are not often the same as our designs. We take the inspired action, we think, well, then it should end up over here. I feel inspired to do this, and then it's going to turn into this, right? God says, well, that's not exactly my plan. You are going to take the inspired action, but what I choose to do with that action is not up to you. This morning in the adult education course, we talked about the interplay of the life of Stephen the martyr and the Apostle Paul. Stephen was the very first Christian martyr, the very first person killed for his faith. He only gets a paragraph, 2 paragraphs in all of Scripture. Basically, he stood up for his faith, and they killed him. They stoned him. Little side note at the end of that story is that the Apostle Paul, who would become the Apostle Paul, at the time he was just Saul, he was a Pharisee, he was one of the bad guys, he was there, essentially holding coats. I'll hold your coat while you guys go kill him. And that event